Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Analyst's Day-to-Day NFL Preview Show presented by Stats Reform. I am your host, Mike Leon. Week 5 of the National Football League is upon us, and we're going to preview some of the matchups on the Sunday slate with my cohorts, as always, AI data analyst at Stats Reform, Kyle Cunningham-Rhoads. Kyle, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Happy to be here as always.
Yeah, good to see you. And NFL writer and digital journalist over at theanalyst.com, Nicholas McGee. Nicholas, how are you, my friend? Facial beard in effect here?
I'm very well and feeling a little bit colder with the less hair on my face, having it trimmed.
Well, that's good. Especially if it's getting colder, the facial hair will work well. You can welcome to the club, as KCR mentioned off air. So let's get right into it, guys, because this is a weird week. When I was looking at some of the matchups that we wanted to discuss, there's some games that are kind of weird, and there's some surprise teams. We're going to start with our first matchup across the pond with the Giants and the Packers, and one of those is a surprise team. It is the New York Giants. They're 3-1. They've had a weird year so far, winning that crazy game down in Tennessee in week 1, going for 2 in Coach Dable's first year over there at the Meadowlands in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The Packers are 3-1 as well. They've won 3 straight after their first week 1 loss to the Vikings. Now this game, I love saying this, in Tottenham Stadium over there across the pond. Let's get a prediction. Let's get a little analysis on each of these teams. KCR, I'll start with you. Giants, Packers, very intriguing matchup. Daniel Jones got hurt last week. Then he had to come back in because of a concussion to Tyrod Taylor. A very weird scenario. He got booed when he was coming back in. Somehow, though, the Giants have won that game. They're 3-1. They haven't really played anybody of note so far. And the one team that they have played in the division, they lost to the Cowboys at home. And like I said about the Packers, they're on a little bit of a roll. Aaron Rodgers starting to heat up. What do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, I'm as shocked as anybody that the Giants won. I think we still have them as our 29th best team, third worst in the league. Fourth worst, I guess. So we don't think that this is really going to continue. They have played some pretty bad teams. I think the thing that I'm looking for most in this game is the Giants' rushing offense. I think the Packers will put up a sort of traditional Packers amount of points, right? They play really slow. They sort of take advantage of opportunities where they can. But if the Giants can keep up, they're really going to need to do it on the ground. In terms of run blocking, this is actually our 4th biggest mismatch of the week in favor of the Packers defense. They have kind of a polarizing rush defense. Their players win rush matchups about 42% of the time. That's 8th best, but they are 22nd in the league in yards per carry. And a lot of that has to do with kind of the tackling that we're seeing on the back end. They're only successful on about 74% of their tackles. That's 6th worst in the NFL. And they also aren't very aggressive in the run game. They have a pretty good pass defense, and part of what they do on the defensive side is they play a little passively in the run game just so that they don't kind of overcommit themselves to the run and have plenty of guys back to defend the pass. That's not really what you need against a team like the Giants, who don't have a very good pass offense. They're gonna rush the ball. They're gonna give it to Saquon a bunch. This year, he's averaging 3.7 yards added per rush. That's a little bit like yards after contact, but we're kind of measuring from his first interaction with the defender instead of first contact with the defender. NFL average for running backs about 3.2, so he's better than average there. He's not necessarily the most elusive running back. He doesn't sort of force a ton of missed and broken tackles, but he's a little like Derrick Henry, where he will get some extra yards just about every time. And that's really where the Packers are not very good. So my big question for the game really is, do the Packers take a different defensive approach against a team with a really poor passing offense? Do they play a little more aggressively to the line of scrimmage against the run? And if not, are they just going to give it to Barkley 60% of the time? We even saw them have some success out of the Wildcat using Barkley. That's my big question for this one.
Yeah, the Giants did switch to that offense when Jones got hurt, and when Taylor got hurt. Actually, they both got hurt during that sequence. I forgot to mention at the top, or maybe I did mention it, that the stats and insights you hear and see are presented by PressBox Live here, Stats Perform's new tool, and you can head to statsperform.com today to see how NFL teams, leagues, and broadcasters are utilizing this tool to help augment their game day coverage. One stat I wanted to give you just mentioned about the Giants and their pass offense that is not to be. In that win, the 20-12 win over the Bears on Sunday, the Giants did not have a single wide receiver with 20 or more receiving yards in the win. It's the second time doing so in their last 6 games Funny enough, the Giants had one such instance over their last 231 games. That is a crazy stat. And again, courtesy of Pressbox Live. Nicholas, what are you looking forward to in this matchup between the Giants and the Packers in London?
Myself and KCR clearly had very similar notes. I can only hammer home what he was making about the point he was making about the Packers' run defense. It was the problem in the 2019 NFC Championship game and the problem against the Bucs in that NFC Championship game, and it still seems to be a problem. And it's the second level again. The linebackers aren't getting the job done, allowing 4.97 yards per rush, which is 11th most in the NFL. And they gave up 167 rushing yards to the Patriots and allowed Bailey Zappi to take them out to overtime, which nobody saw coming. Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris really did a great job of keeping the Patriots offense going in that game, a close one that nobody expected. And Saquon Barkley, he leads the league in rushing with 463 yards. He's got 12 rushes of 10 yards or more, which is bettered only by Nick Chubb with 15. So it's, can he keep them in it? Can the Packers stop him? And can Saquon keep him in it? And I'll be there at Tottenham to find out the answer to that question, which I'm very excited about.
There we go. And we'll have some photos share. You can follow Nicholas on Twitter. He, other than the Niners and tweeting about them all the time, see some action from the Tottenham game. Why don't we stay with you, Nicholas? Give me a prediction for this game between the Giants and the Packers.
I can't go against the Packers. I still think it's going to be a Packers home game because it's the first time they've played in London. It'll be close, but I think I'll give it to the Packers 21-17.
KCR, what about you?
I've got Packers also 26-14.
Yeah, I think the Packers are going to roll here. I don't see this being very close. I watched a lot of that Giant game on Sunday. And again, the Bears offense under Fields on the road has not been particularly great since his, early 2-year career so far out of Ohio State. I think Fields will be good down the road, but for some reason, the Bears couldn't get things going against that Giant defense. Just don't think the Giant offense is enough in this game. And I think Rodgers is onto something right now. And especially the way he played in the second half of that game against the Pats. I like the Packers as well, 28-14. Let's move into our second matchup, a division rival in the AFC East. One team that is missing their quarterback, and we all know what's going on there from a medical perspective with Tua and the Dolphins as they head to the Meadowlands to take on the Jets. The 2-2 Jets, the surprise Jets so far that have won some crazy games like they won last week in Pittsburgh against the Steelers and Kenny Pickett. They won a crazy game on the road against the Browns, all AFC North opponents, by the way. So they're getting that schedule out of the way. They just played the entire AFC North, and they're 2-2 against it. Dolphins are 3-1. Speaking of AFC North, they just lost last Thursday to the Bengals and lost Tua potentially for the season. Teddy Bridgewater will take over. Nobody knows yet if Tua will come back after back-to-back diagnosed and undiagnosed concussions in successive weeks. Let me start with you, Nicholas. What are you looking forward to in this Dolphins-Jets matchup? And what should people be watching for?
My eyes are going to be fixed on Zach Wilson. Can he keep it going? I mean, last week, his debut after coming back from that knee injury, kind of a classic Zach Wilson performance. Long stretches, there was a lot of mistakes. There were some kind of weird decisions and desperation heaves. But when he needed to, those final 2 drives, he was on. He went 6-6 in the final drive against Pittsburgh. And he looked full of confidence. So he have confidence in weapons around him. He's got good weapons around him now with Breece Hall running back, Garrett Wilson, the stud rookie receiver. Got Elijah Moore, who's underrated receiver from last year's draft, and Corey Davis, who's really kind of flown under the radar, but he leads all receivers in what we call here at Stats Perform burn rate, which is how often you're getting open. Essentially, you're getting open 75% of the time. That's tied for the most among receivers with 20 targets or more. And he leads in burn yards per target, which is another metric we've got off that, and in big play rate with 56.1% of his plays going for a big play. So he's really playing well in this early stage of the season. And as much as the Dolphins can give people trouble with how often they blitz and stuff, they do give up quite a lot of yards against the pass, 7.43 yards per pass play, second worst in the league behind the Seahawks. So if Zach can keep that momentum going from what he did in the end of last week's game, this could be a really close game.
Yeah, he played really well in that second half of that game. And Kenny Pickett actually too as well played pretty well, and they're turning over the reins to him in Pittsburgh. KCR, what are you looking forward to in the Dolphin-Jets matchup here?
Well, I'll piggyback a little bit on what Nicholas said before I get into the other side of the ball. My note here is can Zach Wilson be good? I think I run our fantasy projections here. We've got the Dolphins as our top defense of the week. Wilson is known to turn the ball over repeatedly, take tons of sacks, holds onto the ball forever. That is probably compounded by the fact that his offensive line has been brutalized by injuries. They've got their right guard Elijah Vera Tucker playing left tackle now. They just lost their rookie right tackle for a while. The Dolphins are a really creative blitzing team, and for an offense that's had to reshuffle offensive linemen around, that could be kind of a big problem for Wilson. But for me, really, I've been impressed by the Jets' defense so far. I know that they've been gashed for some big plays here and there, but we think that their secondary is pretty good. Sauce Gardner looks pretty good. DJ Reed, who was an offseason signing, is really good. We have the Jets with the second best coverage matchup percentage, so the best at winning one-on-one matchups at 76%. But they do go against the Dolphins team that's been the second best offensively at winning their matchups. The Jets' biggest weakness in the secondary is LaMarcus Joyner. He's one of their safeties that he was injured last year, came back. He's been through a couple position changes. Now he's back at free safety. He's lost 9 of 18 matchups in zone coverage when they've been stressed. And that's resulted in some really big plays. I think that the Dolphins probably want to live on the ground in this game. The Jets' biggest defensive inefficiency is the run game. They're 20th in the NFL in winning their run matchups. The Dolphins O-line has been absolutely terrible in pass pro. They've won not even a half of their pass pro matchups, but in the run game, they're about middle of the league. They're okay. I think what they want to do probably is live on the ground in this game, and then take some deep shots down the field to those speed receivers to try and expose some of those weaknesses deep down the field.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned the quarterback matchup here. Let me give you another stat and insight presented by PressBox Live. Zach Wilson, the second overall pick obviously in the 2021 draft, he's completed only 55.1% of his passes in the 14 games he's played so far in the National Football League. That is the lowest completion percentage over the last 2 seasons among the 30 players with 400 plus pass attempts. On the flip side, Teddy Bridgewater is taking over, like I mentioned, the backup quarterback, and he has completed 66.4% of his passes he's thrown in his NFL career, second highest among active quarterbacks with at least 2,000 pass attempts, only behind Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins. Prediction time. KCR, what do you got for Dolphins Jets?
I've got a pretty low scoring game. I've got the Dolphins winning 20-17.
And Nicholas?
Give me the Jets, 23-20. I believe in Zach Wilson for this one.
You know, it's funny. Now you just said Jets. I'm changing my prediction. The Jets have won 2 games on the road that they probably shouldn't have won, and they've lost 2 games at home that they probably should have split. And it's so funny because at the Meadowlands, having been to Jet games before, it's hit or miss, right? In terms of the crowd support when they get behind early, like they did in the Ravens game, right? The fans are all over them. And then they do what they do on the road against these teams. And a lot of Dolphin fans are going to be there at the stadium. I think now I'm going back. The Dolphins are going to win this game. I like the Dolphins 17-14. I don't think Zach Wilson will be doing much offensively. I do like what the Dolphins defense have been able to do so far in their first 4 games. All right, let's turn to our next matchup. Another, like I said, a bunch of intriguing matchups. This was one that I had my eye on. Obviously, the undefeated Eagles are heading to Arizona to take on the 2-2 Cardinals and Kyler Murray. Very weird start for the Cardinals. We know what they did to my team in Las Vegas in that miraculous comeback. The Eagles, however, have been steamrolling teams left and right, and Jalen Hurts has been playing pretty well. Nicholas, what are you looking forward to in this matchup out in Arizona between the Eagles and the Cardinals?
Yeah, save for the comeback against the Raiders, which is obviously thrilling if you're not a Raiders fan. The Cardinals are pretty boring. Just they beat the Panthers last week, and my goodness, they make it look really, really hard. Everything just looks hard for them at the minute. Which we've got quarterback as good as Kyler Murray is, as talented as Kyler Murray is, that shouldn't be the case. And I'm just asking, I don't even care if they win this game. Can they be anywhere close to exciting as the Eagles? Like, the Eagles are so fun to watch. They're one of the best all-round teams in the league, if not the best all-round team in the league. Can they just hang close in even just being exciting? Kyler Murray is averaging 5.47 air yards per attempt, which is the worst among quarterbacks, at least 10 throws this season. And that's just not what you think of when you think of Kyler Murray. You think of him like running around and chucking it downfield. Obviously, not having DeAndre Hopkins has been a huge part of that because he's normally the guy who chucks it downfield to. But yeah, it's just a bad offense to watch. And I just want to see if they can actually just get it on some kind of rails against Philadelphia.
Yeah, they have been, again, and I watched that Raider game closely. We all know why. But watching their game last week and their victory against the Panthers, like I said, Baker Mayfield has just been up and down so far with the Panthers, not what he's been looking for. I know Panthers fans are ready to get Matt Rule out the door, but the Cardinals didn't overwhelm them, right? That game was pretty close. And like you said, it's been pretty vanilla for what they expected from Cliff Kingsbury when he came over from Texas Tech, right? A little bit more high scoring offense. KCR, what are you looking forward to in this matchup? The upstart Eagles fly. Philadelphia losing their mind. The Phillies are in the playoffs. The Eagles are undefeated. Penn State's undefeated. They're losing their mind in Pennsylvania over there. What do you got for this matchup between the Eagles and the Cardinals?
My preseason team to watch too, if I can toot my own horn for a second. It's funny, Nicholas just kind of bemoaned the Cardinals offense. I'm going to bemoan their defense. I just don't think this is a very good team at all. I mean, they're 31st in winning coverage matchups, 30th in pass rush, 31st in run blocking wins. I just don't see any good players on this team. I think Buda Baker's okay. I think that they've got a couple of cornerbacks who might be all right in the long term, but they just don't, against a team like the Eagles, who are ninth in winning their matchups offensively, second in pass pro, and eighth in run blocking. We just think it's a huge advantage for the Eagles in this game. We have them projected for 31 points, which is easily the highest of the week. And I think really the only way that the Cardinals win this game is if the defense plays well enough to keep Kyler within sort of magic distance, right? Can they keep him within range of being able to make crazy things happen like he did to the Raiders.
Thanks, guys. Keep stabbing the wound there. Well, let me give you a quick stat for both of you guys, and then they'll see how it affects into your predictions. This is a courtesy of PressBox Live. Like I mentioned, head to statsperform.com today. This tool is fantastic, guys, and I'm not upselling it because I work here. The Eagles have lost 4 straight road games against the Cardinals, and they are 3-10 in Arizona since 1993. Their last win in the state of Arizona came in week 8 in 2001. This was at Sun Devil Stadium, a 21-7 game highlighted by Brian Mitchell's 94-yard touchdown return of the opening kickoff. So after that opening kickoff, the Eagles offense did nothing, didn't even fly, but the Cardinals couldn't get anything going. Prediction time, KCR, what do you like score-wise here for this game?
I got Eagles 31-22.
And Nicholas, what about you?
Give me the Eagles 27-17.
I'm going to do the same thing. Eagles 27-17. I think seeing what the Cardinals have done at home, again, another contrast of a team and how they've played on the road at home. Cardinals lost both their home games. They've won on the road, and we know what they did to the Raiders. That's why we went low monotone there. But I just like the way the Eagles have been playing. And Philly's losing their mind. A lot of transplants living out there in Arizona. The Cardinals seem to get that when they play teams from Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, big hubs. You get a lot of road fans in that stadium. So give me the Eagles in that matchup. Let's move into our fourth matchup. Speaking of a team that travels nationally, the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, only to their fans' minds, because they're not America's team. The Cowboys head to LA to take on the Rams, right? The defending Super Bowl champions. An intriguing matchup here because Sean McVay, a lot has been made of what is happening offensively. This offensive guru, and the Rams just lost to Nicholas's Niners on Monday Night Football, only scoring 9 points. I'm going to give a stat and insight on that later on. But the Rams haven't looked like what they looked like last year towards the end of the season, or maybe they have, some people would say. And meanwhile, the Cowboys are sitting there without Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush at quarterback. They're 3-1. They trounced the last 2 division opponents with the Commanders, and then obviously winning in the Meadowlands against the Giants. And for not week 1, Dak getting hurt and a lot of pressure on Dak and not being able to move the football and losing 19-3 to the Bucs, they're on a 3-game winning streak with Cooper Rush. I'll start with KCR on this one. What are you looking for here in the Cowboys-Rams matchup?
Well, you said it with the Rams offense. They just haven't performed to the level that we're sort of familiar with seeing over the last year. And a lot of that really comes down to the offensive line. They've had, I think they're on like their 4th right guard, their 3rd center. I mean, they might get their starting center back this week. Their left tackle has been sort of in and out. They've had Rob Havenstein at right tackle he's been in the entire time, but hasn't quite played to his standards. And that's a really big problem in a McVay offense. I think that what McVay likes to do is sort of establish runs so that you have to play those bootlegs and play actions really aggressively on the defense. And if you cannot establish the run at all, what you can do on defense is you can keep that backside defensive end, instead of pursuing the run to the play side, you can just keep him there and immediately go and rush the passer. That sort of is exactly what you don't want if you're McVay, because you need those routes to develop down the field, those deep crossers and the deep routes to sort of clear out safeties and free up Cooper Kupp in an intermediate area. The Cowboys, the one area of their defense that's been sort of less than average is their run defense. But the Rams are 23rd in quality rush percentage on the ground. They really haven't been able to get anything going. If they can keep out of their own way, I think they're going to be fine. And I think the defense will probably keep them in the game. But if they turn the ball over a number of times, as they've been sort of want to do the last couple of weeks, it could get pretty ugly.
Nicholas, what are you looking forward to in this matchup? I just talked about home teams kind of losing their edge and being inundated by road fans. This is a prime example of what SoFi Stadium is going to look like on Sunday, as Cowboy fans are going to be loud and proud in that stadium. What are you looking forward to in this matchup between the boys and the Rams?
Yeah, so the only bad thing about Monday Night Football over here is, even though the Niners won, I couldn't make any noise because everybody else in my house was asleep. So even as Deebo Samuel's making me lose my mind with that incredible touchdown, I can't make any noise about it. So it's kind of a frustrating experience in a way. But yeah, I'm carrying it on from that game. Can the Rams block anybody? Because they just couldn't on Monday night. They could not block a single 49ers defensive lineman effectively, and the 49ers have an incredible defense, maybe the best in the league. But it's not going to get any easier against the Cowboys. 21 pressures, according to Stats Perform. Pressure can be a quite subjective stat depending where you look, but that's what we have most given up against the Niners. And the Cowboys have the personnel to do the same against, I can't keep track of who's on this Rams offensive line, the amount of injuries they've got. You've got Micah Parsons, obviously. You've got Deron Armstrong playing well, and you've got DeMarcus Lawrence saying, hey, don't forget about me. I'm still one of the best pass rushers in the league. 3 sacks against the Giants a couple of weeks ago. He's third in what we call adjusted sack rate, with 7.9%. That's effectively how often you get into the quarterback. He's the third among the edge rushers in that stat. And if the Cowboys can do the same thing to what the Niners did to the Rams, and they have a very similar formula. They don't have Deebo Samuel, but they can run the ball, even though they're probably going to be Cooper Rush rather than Dak Prescott, but they can run the ball with Zeke and Tony Pollard. And if they get the lead, they can control the clock and control the game. It could be a very similar formula against the Rams team that just doesn't look to have anything on offense that it gets behind beyond Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee, and just no run game to speak of on Monday night either.
Yeah, I'm interested to watch this matchup, and here's why. Because I'm focused, like you guys are, on the Rams offense versus the Cowboys defense. And here's a stat from Press Box Live. Obviously, we mentioned about the Rams falling to the Niners 24-9 out there in Santa Clara last week. That was the second time this season the Rams failed to score more than 10 points. Obviously, week 1 opener against the Bills. They had done so 7 times in McVay's first 5 seasons as head coach, and they hadn't done so more than twice in one season since doing so 9 times in 2016. And that was their final year, their first year in Los Angeles. The interesting stat there, because obviously we all know what we think of McVay as being this offensive guru. Prediction time. Nicholas, what do you got score-wise here for the boys and the Rams?
Tight one again. I'm going for the close game sweep. I think that road team having this edge in SoFi might just give it to the Cowboys. I'm going to go 20-17 to Dallas.
KCR, what do you got?
Yeah, I run our home field advantage calculations too, and the Rams have the worst one in the league because usually they're outnumbered at home. I do still think that the Rams are good. I think they have really good players. I've got the Rams 23-17.
I hate to invoke Stephen A. Smith, but the Cowboys sometimes are an accident waiting to happen. We haven't had that accident yet. We had it in week 1, but it wasn't really an accident because Dak got hurt. Since then, they've been a little bit on a roll. I think this is the accident waiting to happen. I like the Rams as well, too, 23-20. They're in SoFi, as it's only 40% of their fans. Let's move into our final matchup that we're going to look at, an intriguing one. Speaking of teams traveling on the road, blowing leads, another divisional matchup in the AFC North, the Bengals and the Rams, 2 very intriguing teams that find themselves both at 2-2 when they probably shouldn't either of them be 2-2. They should have different records. We're going to get into that in a second. I'm interested in what you guys' take on this matchup, and I've got a very intriguing stat that I'm going to give in a second. But I'll start with you, Nicholas, first. In this game between the Bengals and the Rams, Bengals winning their last game. Obviously, I mentioned Tua getting hurt in that Thursday night game against the Dolphins. The Ravens blowing a big lead at home against the Bills, and obviously, we're going to get into that stat in a second. What are you looking forward to in this matchup between the AFC North rivals?
Yeah, my eyes are on if the Bengals can prevent the explosive play. The Ravens have been obviously a really volatile team. They've given up these big leads a couple of times now. but there's nobody better in the league at creating explosive plays in that passing game than Lamar Jackson and company at the minute. In terms of plays over 20 yards or more, they have 4 touchdowns of that variety, which is tied for the most in the league. So if you're looking for a big play outside of that Seahawks-Lions game last week, you look to the Baltimore Ravens. And it's just whether the Bengals can keep them out, can stop that. And if they can, that could potentially be a recipe for winning this game on the road, as he did last year, and taking control of the division, which looks to be a 2-horse race there, particularly after the Browns laid an egg in Atlanta last week.
Yeah, it's a wide open division, especially what's going on in Pittsburgh. Like you mentioned, the Browns blowing that lead. And let me give you that stat and insight right now, presented by PressBox Live. This is the craziest stat I heard about the Ravens and their second high blown lead of the season. They obviously blew one to Miami. They a 20-3 lead last week in the second quarter. It was the second lead of 17 plus points that they've blown this season. The only teams since 1925 to blow 3 such leads in a season are the 2003 Falcons and the 2020 Chargers. That is a crazy stat that they're presented by PressBox Live. KCR, what are you looking forward to in this Bengals-Rams matchup, a battle of the 2-2 Titans?
I think the Ravens offense does what it's supposed to. I don't see it as a particularly difficult matchup for them. I want to focus on the Bengals offense. I think that the Ravens are dealing with injuries in their secondary again. They've got a couple of backup corners in. And I don't really see the Bengals run offense coming to life against the Ravens run D. The Ravens are really stout on the interior, and the Bengals are just not very good running the football. They're dead last in winning run blocks. As a team, they're winning less than half the time, which is crazy low. Their center, Karras, is only winning 43% of the time. Sort of high ticket free agent Lyle Collins that they signed is only winning 52% of the time, and rookie left guard Cordell Volson is also only winning 52% of the time. They're just not getting a lot of push, and even when they are getting any push, Mixon he just hasn't looked very good this year. He's only netting 1.85 yards added per rush, and we talked about Barkley getting almost 2 extra yards than that in our first preview. That's worst among qualified running backs. Some of that is just that he's running into a wall, but he's only forcing missed tackles on 8% of tackle attempts. Average running backs are around 22%. I think the Ravens' 2 best corners, Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey, are going to be on Chase and Higgins. They play a lot of man coverage. The backup corner, Brandon Stevens, is only winning about half the time in coverage matchups. And linebacker Patrick Queen has been pretty bad as well. He's not even winning half the time. So I think this is going to be, if the Bengals can succeed in this game, apart from the explosive plays that they always seem to find, I think that Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst, the tight end, are really going to have to be the 2 guys who make some plays for Burrow.
I'm interested to see how the Ravens bounce back here, after blowing that big lead. And we've seen the presser clips of Coach Harbaugh and what he has said to the team. I don't think there's a better coach in the league, at least at motivating people to forget about the previous week to go to the next week. So prediction time. KCR, let's start with you. What's your prediction on this game?
This is a funny one because our model actually predicts overtime. It's 24-24. I'm going to go 24-23 Baltimore just because Justin Tucker doesn't miss kicks or extra points, and the Bengals kicker has missed a couple this year. So I think something like that really is what turns this game.
That's true. 2 good special teams units there. Nicholas, I turn to you. Bengals Ravens prediction.
Yeah, I'm going to stick on the Baltimore side as well. I'll go with the Ravens winning the close one. I feel like 30-28.
Yeah, I like the Ravens as well, too. The special teams game, like I said, I just mentioned it before, but Tucker is obviously the best kicker in the league. We saw McPherson did last year in the playoff run for the Bengals, but I do like the Ravens bouncing back here and winning at home. I mean, if you can't secure a lead for the 3rd straight time, we'll find out if they can do that. Before we sign off here, I want to get each of you guys, KCR, I'll start with you first. Who has been your MVP so far in the National Football League?
So I cheated a little bit. I'm going to pick a unit instead of a player. I'm going to go with the Eagles offensive line. They're top 10 this year in both pass protection and run blocking. Jason Kelsey's still the best center in the league by our metrics. Lane Johnson's the top pass blocking right tackle. Like Jordan Mailata, we've loved since he was a starter last year, just a fantastic, absolute mauler in the run game. Landon Dickerson, who they, sort of a question when they drafted him. Everybody's like, well, they've already got a big offensive line. Why do they need another one? He's proved them right. He's been absolutely fantastic. I hope that Mailata's back soon. But the talent that they have at wide receiver and quarterback, just being able to really, really open up the playbook with an offensive line that gives the quarterback time and creates huge holes in the running game. The Eagles' strong start has been one of the things that we've talked about consistently throughout this year. And I think that offensive line is really where it starts for that team.
Yeah, they have been really good. You've been all over the Eagles, so credit to you in their 4-0 start. Well, no credit to you. You don't play on the Eagles, but you know what I mean. Nicholas, NFL MVP doesn't necessarily have to be a player. It could be a unit like KCR just mentioned there. Who has been the MVP for you so far through 5 weeks?
I'm going to go with a player. I'm going to go with Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen. I don't think there's been a better quarterback in the league through the first 4 weeks of the season. He's a second most accurate quarterback in the league by our metrics, well-thrown percentage of 88.8%, which trails stunningly only Geno Smith, but I don't think Geno Smith's going to MVP, so I think Josh Allen's got a little bit more to his game than Geno, as good as he's been. Allen's also doing amazing things on the ground. He's averaging over 6 yards per carry, and he's delivered those defining moments. He's put a team on his back in Miami and wasn't quite able to get them over the line, and that game is going to be remembered for a long time for a variety of reasons. And he's got the comeback on his resume against the Ravens last weekend as well. So I think through the first quarter of the season, Josh Allen's been probably the most valuable player in the league for my money.
Yeah, Sans one little blip in Indianapolis against a team that they probably shouldn't have lost to. Patrick Mahomes has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league as well. 11 touchdowns so far, 3 touchdowns passing last week against the Buccaneers in that Sunday night matchup. I expect more as they get set to take on my Raiders on Monday Night Football. The Chiefs are 15-3. You want a stat and insight presented by PressBox Live. 15-3 in their last 18 matchups against the Raiders, and we have not been able to contain Mahomes. The last time we won was a road matchup in a very high-scoring matchup where Mahomes threw for 3 touchdowns in that game. I think he'll have more. I think the Chiefs are going to win the division first and foremost. They already have one in the bag against the Chargers. And so I think Patrick Mahomes, when it's all said and done, will probably win the MVP of the National Football League. We leave it there. My thank yous, as always, to Kyle Cunningham-Rhoads, Nicholas McGee. You can follow both of them on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it is. Follow us. For the show, follow us on YouTube. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a preview again of Week 7 in the National Football League. As always, I am Mike Leon. Thank you, everybody, for watching, listening. We'll see you next time.